Okay, so I heard some pretty big news. Shein is back in India, like officially back. It's kind of wild, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's quite a comeback. I mean, after being banned for almost 5 years, it seems like they've navigated some pretty complicated regulatory hurdles to make this happen.
Right. It was banned back in 2020, along with a bunch of other Chinese apps, if I remember correctly, for data security concerns. But what exactly made them want to come back now?
Well, it seems like a combination of factors. For starters, Shein is looking at a massive $6.6 billion London IPO, and having a presence in a huge market like India is really beneficial for them. And also, they've made some assurances to the Indian authorities.
Like what kind of assurances?
Well, the big one is that they're going to source goods from India for their global operations. And it's also possible they will manufacture here and then export those products, which, I mean, was kind of necessary to get the green light, I suppose.
That's actually quite a smart move, right? So it's not just about selling here, but also using India as a manufacturing hub.
Exactly. It's like a strategic pivot for them. It's a way to show they're not just selling, but also contributing to the Indian economy, which is pretty smart.
So, how did they even pull this off? I remember it was a complete ban. So, how do they just relaunch?
Right. This was through a deal with Reliance Retail. Basically, Reliance has launched a new app for Shein in India and they are running the show. And Shein is acting as a technology provider. So Reliance is retaining ownership and control, which is a big part of the deal.
So, Reliance is handling the actual operations, including things like data governance. That's interesting.
Precisely. And get this, all the user data will be stored in India. And there's even going to be security audits by government approved cyber experts. So it seems like a very controlled environment.
Okay, that makes sense. So, basically, they've put in a lot of measures to alleviate those initial data concerns and it's actually all done through a licensing agreement, right?
Exactly. It's not Shein directly operating, but through Reliance, which I guess is a workaround that allows them to be back. Also, Reliance is planning to use local Indian manufacturers to produce Shein branded apparel. So that could potentially be a big boost for the Indian textile sector.
Wow, that's actually a huge benefit. It's like a win-win for both sides then.
Well, yes, it seems like it, and it shows how much the Indian market matters to Shein, especially with the increasing competition in the fast fashion industry there.
Speaking of competition, I remember seeing something about Zudio and other brands doing really well there.
Oh, absolutely. The Indian fast fashion market is booming. Brands like Zudio, which is part of the Tata Group, have seen massive growth. We are talking like tripling sales in dollar terms from pre pandemic levels. And their profits have gone up like 12-fold.
That is absolutely insane. And I think Zudio in particular has become a real hit with young shoppers, right?
Yes, totally. Their strategy of quick inventory turnover in low rent areas has really paid off. They offer trendy clothes at affordable prices, which is a big hit with the younger demographic. And I guess that's why Reliance wants to take a piece of that pie now.
So Reliance, they tried launching their own brand to compete, but it hasn't really taken off like Zudio.
Yeah, exactly, Ushta, which is Reliance's attempt to compete directly hasn't gained the same traction yet. And their fashion sales growth has been relatively slow in comparison to their other retail segments like electronics.
That kind of puts the Shein collaboration in context. It's like they realized they needed a different approach to really compete in that space, right?
Definitely. It shows a shift in their strategy, moving from integrating brands into a geo to having a dedicated app competing directly with other fashion retailers. I mean, Shein's global dominance is huge. They're not to be ignored.
So Shein is basically coming in as a major force and it's going to heat up the competition, right?
Oh, absolutely. Shein's global presence is massive and they've got like 250 million social media followers. They even surpassed Nike, H&M and Zara in website visits.
That's just wild. They seem to have just completely taken over the fast fashion world.
I mean, their business model is pretty effective. They operate directly to consumers, use social media influencers, and have pretty aggressive discounting. Plus, they can quickly adjust production based on the demand.
And this allows them to keep inventory waste low, right?
Yeah, it's a very very lean operation from what I gather. They use over 5,000 third-party suppliers, mostly in China, which means they have a lot of flexibility in the production capacity.
I can see why they are such a big threat to established brands, but also aren't they like embroiled in a lot of controversies?
Oh, yeah, there are some serious concerns actually. There's been reports about their labor practices like 75-hour work weeks and issues of forced labor.
Wow, that's awful. That makes their rapid expansion seem kind of grim.
Right. And also, there's allegations that they use cotton sourced from Xinjiang region, where forced labor is a major concern. So I guess they're trying to improve their reputation before their IPO.
It's really important they address those ethical issues and, ensure fair labor standards.
Absolutely, especially with Reliance overseeing their operations now, there's going to be an increased scrutiny of how things are being run.
And I remember something from the news, and it's really important for anyone looking into investments that we mention this. Disclaimer: we advise investors to check with certified experts before taking any investment decisions.
That's really critical. Always do your homework before jumping into anything. Okay, now back to Shein. So, what do you think their return means for the Indian consumer?
Well, I guess that means more affordable and trendy options, which could benefit consumers who are looking for the latest fashion trends. And the competition should help keep prices down, right?
Yes, it will be interesting to see how the established brands respond to the increased competition, and it might even prompt them to innovate and change their strategies.
So it's a pretty dynamic market situation right now, with Reliance, Tata, and Shein battling it out.
Absolutely. The entry of Shein is definitely a game changer. It will be intriguing to see how everything plays out and who wins the most in this fast fashion showdown.
Definitely. I guess we should keep an eye on the market to see how these changes will influence the industry. And that also goes for listeners. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date.
Yeah, it's a complex scenario with a lot of moving parts, but one thing is for certain, the fast fashion market in India is going to be a very interesting space to watch.
Totally agree. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Absolutely. And it seems like there's a lot more to uncover regarding this fast fashion battle.